Hi, I'm back with another video on vertigo, and if you or someone you care about struggles with vertigo, dizziness, or that terrifying sensation that the room is suddenly spinning for no reason, you're going to want to pay very close attention, because this is not just another quick tip video or a surface-level explanation. This is about understanding what is really happening inside your body and why the problem keeps coming back for so many people, despite medications, exercises, and reassurance that it's nothing serious. Because today I'm not only going to show you what you can do to get immediate relief when vertigo hits, but more importantly, I'm going to walk you through what's happening behind the scenes, at the root cause level, so you finally understand why this condition exists in the first place and what you can do to correct it long-term, rather than just chasing symptoms. And the most common form of vertigo by far is something called BPPV, which stands for benign paroxysmal positional vertigo, a long and technical name that makes it sound complicated and mysterious when in reality the mechanism behind it is surprisingly elegant, fascinating, and also very fixable once you understand it, because BPPV is not caused by anxiety, not caused by imagination, and not caused by weak willpower. It's caused by tiny calcium carbonate crystals inside your inner ear that have moved to places they were never meant to be. And when those crystals shift into the wrong location, even slightly, they can completely disrupt your sense of balance and spatial orientation, causing sudden dizziness, spinning, nausea, and a feeling like the ground has disappeared beneath you, especially when you change positions, such as bending over, rolling in bed, tilting your head back, standing up too quickly, or even turning your head to one side. And to understand why this happens, we need to take a closer look at the inner ear itself, because the ear is not just for hearing, it is also one of the most sophisticated balance organs in the human body, containing a system so precise that it functions like a three-dimensional gyroscope, constantly feeding your brain information about where your head is in space, how fast it's moving, and in which direction. And this system allows you to walk, run, turn, lie down, and move through the world without consciously thinking about balance at all. And within this inner ear are structures called the semicircular canals, along with the utricle and saccule, all filled with fluid and lined with microscopic hair cells that detect movement. And in order for these hair cells to be sensitive enough to detect even the slightest head movement, the body uses a brilliant design feature. It embeds tiny calcium crystals, known as autoconia, into a gel-like membrane. And these crystals act like weights, increasing the sensitivity of the system so that even subtle shifts in position are detected instantly. And under normal circumstances, these crystals are firmly anchored exactly where they belong, and everything works beautifully, but the problem arises when those crystals become dislodged, and instead of staying in the utricle where they are supposed to be, they migrate into the semicircular canals. And when that happens, every time you move your head, gravity causes those loose crystals to shift, dragging fluid with them, bending the hair cells inappropriately, and sending false signals to the brain that tell you that you are spinning even when you are perfectly still. And that mismatch between what your eyes see and what your inner ear reports is what creates vertigo, nausea, disorientation, and sometimes even panic. And the critical question then becomes, why do these crystals break loose in the first place? Because this is not random, and it is not bad luck. And research consistently shows that certain populations are at much higher risk, particularly postmenopausal women, older adults, people with osteoporosis, people with frequent vitamin deficiencies, and people who have chronic inflammation or metabolic stress. And when you dig deeper into the science, you find something extremely important that almost no one talks about in conventional vertigo treatment, and that is the role of calcium-binding proteins. Because inside the inner ear, there are specific proteins whose job it is to keep calcium exactly where it belongs, anchoring those crystals in place so they don't drift. And these proteins are not static. They are actively regulated by the body, and what regulates them turns out to be absolutely critical, because after reviewing the research, the conclusion becomes unavoidable. Vitamin D3 plays a central role in controlling the expression and function of these calcium-binding proteins, and this is where everything starts to make sense, because vitamin D is not just a vitamin, It functions more like a hormone, influencing the activity of over 2,400 genes in the human body, affecting bone metabolism, immune regulation, inflammation control, blood pressure, neurological signaling, and yes, handling throughout the body, including in the inner ear. And when vitamin D levels are low, those calcium-binding proteins become weaker and less effective, meaning the anchoring system for those crystals begins to fail, allowing them to break loose and wander into areas where they trigger vertigo. And when researchers looked at people suffering from recurrent BPPV, they found an astonishingly high prevalence of vitamin D deficiency, and even more compelling, multiple studies and meta-analyses have shown that correcting vitamin D deficiency significantly reduces the recurrence of BPPV episodes, including studies specifically titled Prevention of Recurrent Benign Paroxysmal Positional Vertigo with Vitamin D Supplementation. And while some studies show mixed results, the reason for that becomes obvious once you understand dosing and absorption, because many people are given extremely low doses of vitamin D, sometimes as little as 600 IU per day, which is the outdated RDA, a level that is completely inadequate for most adults, especially those with insulin resistance, obesity, chronic inflammation, genetic variations affecting vitamin D receptors, or limited sun exposure. And vitamin D is fat-soluble, meaning it requires proper absorption and daily consistency to build up and maintain effective blood levels. And when researchers use doses that actually raise vitamin D to functional ranges, typically requiring between 6,000 and 10,000 IU per day for maintenance in many individuals, the outcomes improve dramatically. And this is not about megadosing recklessly. It's about restoring physiological levels that the human body evolved with. And when vitamin D levels rise appropriately, the body can rebuild the crystal anchoring system inside the inner ear, stabilizing those otoconia and reducing the likelihood that they will dislodge again. But vitamin D does not work in isolation. And this is another critical piece of the puzzle, because vitamin D requires magnesium to be activated, metabolized, and utilized properly. And magnesium itself is one of the master regulators of calcium in the body, ensuring that calcium goes into bones and teeth rather than soft tissues where it can cause problems. And when magnesium is deficient, calcium metabolism becomes chaotic, increasing the risk of calcification in the wrong places, including potentially within the delicate balance structures of the ear. And when researchers examined magnesium levels in people with vertigo, they found associations suggesting that magnesium deficiency may worsen symptoms or impair recovery, which means the most effective strategy is not vitamin D alone, but vitamin D combined with adequate magnesium intake. And to complete the trio, vitamin K2 also plays a supportive role by directing calcium to the proper tissues, preventing misplacement. And while research on K2 and vertigo is still emerging, its known role in calcium regulation makes it a logical addition. And so if someone were dealing with chronic or recurrent vertigo, addressing vitamin D3 at meaningful doses, alongside magnesium and possibly vitamin K2, would be the most rational root cause approach, understanding that this process does not happen overnight, because rebuilding protein systems and correcting deficiencies takes time, often days to weeks, sometimes longer depending on baseline levels. And during that rebuilding phase, symptoms may still occur, which brings us to what you can do right now for immediate relief. And that is where the Epley maneuver comes in, a simple but powerful positional technique designed to guide those misplaced crystals out of the semicircular canals and back to where they belong. And when performed correctly, it can dramatically reduce or eliminate vertigo symptoms, often within minutes. And the maneuver works by using gravity and controlled head movements to reposition the crystals step by step. First, identifying which ear is affected by observing which direction triggers the most severe vertigo when the head is tilted back at a 45-degree angle, then performing the maneuver on that side by lying back with the head turned, waiting for the vertigo to stop and allowing the crystals to settle, rotating the head to the opposite side, waiting again, rolling onto the side with the head angled downward, and finally returning to a seated position with the chin tucked, allowing the inner ear to recalibrate. And while the Epley maneuver can provide rapid symptom relief, it does not address why the E became dislodged in the first place, which is why combining immediate mechanical correction with long-term nutritional correction is so important. And that's also why consistency matters, patience matters, and understanding matters. Because vertigo is not random, it is a signal. And when you correct the underlying deficiencies and support the systems responsible for balance, the body often responds remarkably well. And before I wrap this up, I want to remind you that I've put together a free daily routine and checklist that I personally use to maintain energy, balance, and overall health. And I'm offering it to you at no cost. Just click the link below and download it. And finally, I wanted to keep this discussion focused and practical, because vertigo can be frightening, disruptive, and exhausting. But once you understand the mechanism, the fear begins to fade, and the solution becomes clear. And because vitamin D and magnesium deficiencies are connected to so many conditions beyond vertigo, I strongly encourage you to watch the next video I've linked here, because it may open your eyes to connections you've never considered before. And with the right information and the right approach, vertigo does not have to control your life.